Hi, and welcome back to SmileHome's interview series. Today we're talking with Richard, who's talking about his experience in Japan, living here for 20 years. Hi, Richard.
Hi,
Could you please introduce yourself and tell us why you moved to Japan and a bit about your experience here and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, everyone. I'm from the UK. I grew up in the UK in a small town in Devon, and it was very countryside. And actually, at the time, my dream was to live in Tokyo. For me, at the time, it was the ultimate big city. And then when I was a teenager, I saw a BBC program on Japanese language and people, and that really captured my imagination. So those two things were key. And I actually graduated with languages, with French and German. I went to Singapore first for 5 years, but this wish to go to Japan was always there. So after 5 years in Singapore, I moved to Japan in 2002. And I spent about 20 years there. And it was really an unforgettable time. I went around the whole country. I was a translator, a writer, and editor. At that time, it was a very AI-proof job, not like now. I got married, had 2 kids. I got permanent residency.
Thank you, that was very interesting. So what do you do now as a living?
5 years ago, I moved with my family from Kobe. I lived in Tokyo 8 years and in Kobe 11 years. And during the really difficult pandemic time, I actually moved to Germany. So people would think, why did you move during the pandemic and, why Germany? I mean, I could have stayed in Japan. I like Japan. I speak Japanese. But my eldest son has special needs. So for his care, we feel Europe is better. So we made the decision, my wife and I, to move to Europe to get better care for him that would be available here. And I moved to Germany. I don't have the same passion for Germany like I did for Japan, but I feel that family situation is good, so it was a good decision.
So you've really moved around Japan. You said you started in Aichi,
Yeah.
and then you moved around to Tokyo, and then you spent 11 years in Kobe.
Correct. So I arrived in Aichi because you have to get a job to start somewhere. So I was in English conversation school in Aichi for 6 months just to get a foothold in Japan and, the visa and so on. It was tough because I didn't have any Japanese or any friends or network, and I wasn't that happy in the school because I don't know, it's just very, very kind of like a small school, and I had big ideas and big things I wanted to do in Japan. But anyway, I worked hard, and the owner of the school kind of respected the fact I worked hard. After 6 months, she said, "I'm going to drive you to Tokyo because I know you want to go to Tokyo." But so she actually drove me to Tokyo, and in Tokyo at the time, it was quite easy to get students, and every coffee shop in Starbucks back in the day, you had like English teachers sitting down doing lessons. I used to do that 25 students a week sometimes. So I learned Japanese and I did my side gigs, and I learned Japanese, and then work started flowing much better. And then after a while, after 2 years or so, I could do the lifestyle, I really wanted to do, like traveling around the whole country and enjoying Tokyo to the maximum. So yeah, that was a really good time for me.
Do you have any specific reason what made those places you stayed in quite special?
I mean, actually, I think it was special because it was really like deep end Japan. Yeah. It was really like Inaka. So I don't regret going there, but it was hard. I actually climbed Mount Fuji after 6 months after coming there. I went up Mount Fuji, so also another memory. Got to the top. Tokyo, yeah, it was a great feeling to be there because it was like living the dream. My dream as a kid was to live there. So to not only live there, but to build it up from nothing, and to go from not speaking Japanese to speaking it, and then working hard and making good income, and then enjoying all the things you can enjoy in Tokyo, is a great feeling. I think you enjoy it more when it doesn't come easily. So for me, it didn't come easily, and I have good friends there. I met a good friend yesterday I hadn't seen for 5 years. It's a great feeling when you have people in Japan, who are very pleased to see you after a long time. It's a great feeling, yeah.
So being familiar with SmileHome and like our active leadership, how do you think SmileHome is a reliable partner for European professionals in terms of helping them professionals move to Japan and finding housing?
I think if you come to Japan, it's not just a language barrier, it's also a cultural barrier, trust barrier. Trust is everything in Japan, and if you don't have like a kind of guarantor or a company or person or entity that kind of verifies your vouchers for you and says this person is valid, and we are willing to say that they are responsible, they need a house or something. But if you try and do it yourself, it's not just difficult because of Japanese, it's difficult because you don't have any social proof or credibility. So I think in that respect, a company like yours is very important in filling the gap. You have the contacts which people themselves couldn't make, and I think you have testimonials, you have a track record, and that's something which you can't just have if you just come. You have to start somewhere.
You spent the past 20 years kind of mapping Japan and Europe's businesses and global talent and how it all links to Japan. From your own experience, how much roadblock is there from housing search specifically for foreigners in Japan?
I think it's becoming slightly easier when I was in Japan, because generally the infrastructure has become, there's more foreigners in Japan, so Japan has to bend a bit. I always think Japan is like a big ship. It's like it's changing slowly, but it's very slow. But it has to change. And last year, I think the population went down by like 900,000 people. So they are aware they have to change, yeah. But it's just too slow for people who come and need something very soon. So it's like a work in progress, I would say.
So you did mention that the housing process was slightly easier for you because you had a spouse that was in. What about the paperwork and immigration process? How was that for you?
You mean the visa game?
Yeah.
It was never fun going to Shinagawa. You've probably been there yourself, right? The Shinagawa immigration office. We never enjoyed that, and it's always like random whether you get 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. It depends on the mood of the guy or the woman who's processing it. It's literally that. So actually, I got married and I had a spouse visa, which makes it easier. But then, honestly speaking, there's always a voice in my head that says, if things don't go well, you have to leave Japan. It's like, obviously I'm still married, but if I wasn't, then people in that situation, you have to leave Japan pretty soon. So in my mind was like, I should become permanent resident because it's safe. So no matter what happens, I will have a right to live here. So when I was working hard and doing well, I thought, okay, I'm going to pay someone to do that. In Kobe, I found a woman, lawyer, and she did it for me, and I got that. And then this time, I was renewing the residence card. So I found a guy in Osaka, and I said, I don't live in Japan anymore, but I value the PR and I want to keep it. So he said, we can do this. You just have to be in here in person before July, before it expires. So I said, okay, I'm going to make it happen. So I made it happen.
And so you've watched the whole housing market in Japan evolve, same as like the immigration process. How would you say the expectations for foreigners has changed now in Japan?
Well, the idea of living in Japan is becoming much more widespread. People come here for 2 or 3 weeks on holiday and they love Japan. They always say or they don't go on holiday, but when I say to them in Germany, I lived there for 20 years, they say, oh, I'm so envious, it's on my list and I want to go, I love Japan. But as you know, when you live here and you visit, it's totally different. Totally different. Every country is different, but Japan is more different. Living here is quite challenging. I think there's still a lot of people who want to live, but they're not aware of how demanding it can be to live here. Not just because of housing, but everything, the culture and everything, So, yeah.
So what advice would you give to those who plan to relocate to Japan now or in the future?
Well, okay, so learning language is an obvious thing to say, but it's not just that. So you get to a point where you learn Japanese to a good level, hopefully. Maybe, I don't know, not like a native level, but a good level, so you can communicate without so many problems. The thing is, some people are obsessed about it. They say, I want to speak like a native speaker. I don't want to have an accent. I want to speak perfectly like Japanese. So when you don't look at me, you think I'm a Japanese person. I think this is silly, and it's like, you don't need to obsess about it. If you get to a good level of Japanese, you should spend the rest of your energy doing the culture. That's the intangible things. That's what opens the door in Japan, not speaking from 80% to 100%. To cement the human relations or to get more progress here. I think your energy and your time should be spent on these tiny things like human relations. Traveling. When I travel around a lot, when I meet Japanese people, I always say, "Where are you from?" They say like Akita, where you at it? And it's like, I've been there, and it's like icebreaker. And if you fill your life with activities in Japan, you never have a problem talking to them because they know you know the place. So I feel like that gives me a really good base to talk to Japanese people and say I know the stuff. I met someone from Kumamoto, and I said, yeah, I have a friend who works in Kumamoto City, and they have this karashi renkon something, the food, and I kind of I don't know all of it, but I know quite a lot of stuff in Japan, so they bond quite quickly when you have that kind of thing, Yeah.
Thank you very much for the time today.
Thanks. Great. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.